Following program are pre-recorded Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bach along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota National Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drug Store. And, well, Kev, it's been an interesting couple weeks.
Yeah.
We got the election stuff out of the way, and unfortunately, you're losing a big advocate in Washington, D.C. when it comes to the pharmacy
Yes.
world in Kelly Armstrong.
Absolutely.
He's now going to be our governor.
Yep. I'll miss him in Washington. He was a great ally for us. Hopefully we can continue our relationship within the state of North Dakota, because I do think there's some things that Kelly can do that can help us as we continue to struggle through the changing times. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today is as I get that much closer to transitioning out of ownership.
Oh, I thought you were going to say as I get that much older. And
well, that too. There's that too. But, you know, in a few short days, we probably will I will transition out of being majority owner at the pharmacy, and Crystal will take that position. So I'll be
kind of exciting.
It is.
You've been working on this for a long time, and she's chomping at the bit.
Yep. She's been a partner for 10 years now. So it's really time for this to happen. We ran into a few issues with the banking industry, but we're working through that.
So now you get to spend more time at the zoo.
Well, I get to spend more time at the zoo.
Because that's where your wife's at.
And I was going to say I would spend more time at home, but that probably won't happen.
No.
So I'll be around the pharmacy. I have some projects that I'll continue to work on. I hope to continue to do our social media campaign and things like this radio show, which
and
I
you're
really
way
enjoy doing.
Way too vested into the compounding world, either as an advocate, a lobbyist. You've got the different branding sides of things, so it's not like you're going to have all this spare time in your hands.
I'm early in an appointment to the State Board of Pharmacy, so that's something that I can work a little harder on. But not only as I transition out, but I see a real change in what the pharmacy industry is going to look like. You know, what's our pharmacy going to look like in 20 years? And there's a continued push from the industry, this virtual integration of the insurance companies owning not only the mail order pharmacies, but now the providers of healthcare from top to bottom. That's going to continue. I just don't see a time when that's really going to get slowed down.
We've talked about the PBM side of a lot of it, but you know, when you boil it down, what it equates to is instead of your healthcare provider, the insurance company through the PBMs are making healthcare decisions for you.
Yeah, that's the virtual integration part.
Yeah.
So they're in charge from top to bottom.
Yeah, and that does not have good patient outcomes.
No, but I think
they didn't go to med school.
No, but I think
they didn't go to pharmacy school.
I think what we have to do as an industry is realize that this change is going to come, and how do we adapt? How do we adapt our profession to survive? Because I think we're really in a survival mode.
Well, great example. I just had a follow-up to medical procedure, colonoscopy, and there was some issues, so they had to abort the colonoscopy. Well, my healthcare provider, we were a little ahead of schedule for what the schedule for my regular colonoscopy was, because, you know, former cancer patient, they're watching some things, and I think they were early by 2 months because that's when they could get it in. There were some other issues they wanted to check, and they had to fight the insurance company because it was 2 months ahead of schedule. Well, now that didn't go well on the colonoscopy and they had to reschedule another one, we already had that conversation. That was the first conversation I had with my healthcare provider is, let's get you on the schedule now because we're going to have to fight your insurance company because it's not that 4-year schedule that you're on, because we're going to have one in 6 months. So let's get you on the schedule now because we know we're going to have a 4-month fight.
Yeah. And
they're not my healthcare provider.
No. And I think you're right. There's a danger in this model. there's nothing like the power of touch. And when medical professionals like prescribers, physicians, nurse practitioners lose the ability to touch their patient, they lose the ability to provide adequate care. But the writing's on the wall. You look at this whole GLP-1 weight loss monster that's going on right now. It just gets worse. The FDA shut down a pharmacy and a spa this last week because a patient filed a complaint because there was black particulates in their vial of injectable. And when they investigated it, the place that was making it wasn't using any of the guidelines and the regulations that people like us have to uphold to. And then that finds its way into multiple facilities because they're sending it all over. Patients are seeing prescribers through the internet. They may not even be doing face-to-face. They're answering a few questions. Those drugs are going to places that are dispensing them without being a pharmacy, and people aren't getting the right guidance. And that's the model for disaster, but that's the model that we're looking at. And as pharmacies and pharmacists, we have to continue to fight for the rights of our patients, and we have to continue to figure out ways to be involved in that triad of care. The triad of care for us, I think, is a critical tipping point.
I've always been an advocate of the triad of care and have expounded about that since we started talking about this. Right. I mean, you need to be your best advocate. You are your best advocate when it comes to your own health care. Yeah. And that relationship you have with your primary care providers, you know you better. I mean, it's not like the doctor calls you up and goes, "Hey, are you sick this week?"
Right.
No. Right. Something's wrong, and you go seek out the healthcare professional.
Yeah.
And that's the way the system works, and that's the way the system should work. You need to be your best advocate.
Yep. And not only in the pharmacy world, but I think in the healthcare world as a whole, we're going to see a loss of the population of educated people that come out of our healthcare educating facilities. It's not that attractive anymore. Specialists probably will have their place, but your primary care population, I think, will suffer as much as pharmacies are suffering now.
Well, we see a loss in general practitioners because everybody goes into specialized medicine.
Right. Exactly. And there's the closure of pharmacies in the country, and not only community pharmacies, because that's really my passion, but almost 10 pharmacies a day are closing in the country right now. But that includes big box stores and chain pharmacies and corporate pharmacies and family-owned pharmacies with multiple
Let's
stores.
talk about that when we come back, because a lot of that model is going to, hey, we'll mail it to you. We're talking with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk. Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bach, along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. And we're talking about the model of healthcare changing and the pharmacy side of that. And one of the things we're seeing more and more, and I still question how this works in North Dakota with the Amazon mail. They're not a pharmacy, and you have to have local ownership. And anyway, different discussion. But the push is, hey, we'll mail you your prescription.
Yeah.
That's really what they want nationally. So when you're seeing the big boxes close alongside the small, locally owned or mom and pop pharmacies close at a rate of 10 a day, that's really because of that push that's like, well, we're just going to mail you your prescription.
Yes.
So if you have any questions about your prescription or dosing or how to apply, or tough?
No. The troubling part is not only are patients being forced to use a mail order system that's owned by the benefits manager, PBMs, or their insurance, but pharmacies are forced to make really, really tough decisions. I was on a call last night with a colleague of mine in Ohio. They have 4 stores, a family-owned pharmacy. One of them has a compounding pharmacy. And I've been working with Brad over the last month as he transitioned out of retail pharmacy into a compounding-only shop because the numbers just don't match up. He did some numbers for the year 2024, and his top 10 most expensive drugs, he paid $576,000 for that inventory and got paid $541,000. So he loses $31,000 on the 10 most expensive drugs in his inventory.
You're not staying in business.
You can't stay in business doing that. So he makes the radical decision to the disgust of his dad, who's still in the business and part owner, that they're just not going to carry those drugs. If the adjudication from the payers is less than what you pay for it, you can't stay in business. Now, your contract says that you have to provide that service, but what if you don't have it in inventory? He says, we're starting to have people walk in. They have a prescription for an expensive drug. We look at our list, and they've created their own formulary. And a formulary is things that insurance companies use that tells so a health system has a formulary. It's what they use within their health system in their hospitals.
It's a profit and loss chart, basically, is what it is.
So, oftentimes physicians know what the formulary is, so that's what they're going to prescribe for a patient that's in the hospital. Brad and his team now have their own formulary. It's what they carry within their pharmacy, and he figures they're going to lose about 40% of their business, but that's business that was losing money and forcing them out of business. And he's young enough that he's really just trying to survive in this. So that's the model he's creating, is literally not carrying the drugs that we're losing money on. And that forces people then to seek that help outside. And as that happens more and more, they're going to have to start to look to mail order.
So that brings up a question. Is that intentional? And this might be a little bit of a political question. So from the PBMs, because I've always looked from a business perspective, it's like, okay, you're cutting off your market share. Are they intentionally cutting off their market share so that they can go to the mail-in only model?
Yeah. Their MO is to drive other pharmacies out of business, including their colleagues in the big box store world. So CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, they're all...
Before, they worked hand in hand.
Right. Now
and it was to get rid of the smaller local pharmacies and just have the big boxes. Now the PBMs are actually going after the big boxes too, because here we want this model, and it's that mail order model.
So each big box has their affiliated pharmacy benefits manager and mail order system, so they're in competition with each other. So you go to a Walgreens and you need a prescription that's not profitable because the provider of that is CVS and their competition. They're doing the same thing. They're just not carrying the product, and then that patient is forced back to either the competition or into the mail order system so that it comes directly to their home. And we repeatedly get questions from the public about their medication that we've not touched. And that makes it really, really difficult because they can come from multiple places. They get something at the store that they normally go to. They get something through the mail. And then they're confused about some of the side effects they may be dealing with, or some of the nutritional things that they're wanting to investigate. Makes it really hard for us because it's not within our walls for us to simply look at that profile and make those decisions for people. And then because of the time that it takes to look through all that information to help make those decisions for that patient, we're going to be forced to charge for that time. Because I can't spend a half hour with a patient for nothing. That just doesn't work. And that's where our profession is going.
So does the model something similar to what you have as a comprehensive healthcare center, because that's kind of what Dakota Pharmacy and all the other facets you have there.
Right.
Is that the survivability model for pharmacies? Is we have to have everything under one roof, or so it's either like your friend, cut back on what you're doing or expand enough to where everything's in-house?
Well, I think it's a combination
from
of things.
From a provider perspective.
We at this point have not eliminated drugs from our inventory, but if things keep going down the road that they're going, we probably will have to make that decision as well. But I think what we've created in this hybrid pharmacy world is the integration of prescription medication, nutraceuticals, partners at the Natural Health Center that have prescriptive privileges, relationships with prescribers that trust our knowledge and they refer people to us. But where our profit was made on the product that we sold or the prescription that we dispensed, that's gone away. So we're starting to see pharmacy students educated to have what are called collaborative agreements with prescribers. They will actually be an advanced practice moving forward, much like nurse practitioners are an advanced practice in the nursing industry. They get prescriptive privileges. They get diagnostic privileges, especially in rural communities. That's the model I think that we're going to see. So what does our pharmacy look like in 20 years? So if you live in a community...
Well, I'll tell you what, hold that thought, because we're going to talk about what does a pharmacy look like in 20 years.
In a community of 3,000 people.
And who's working it. That's a big part of that.
Yep.
We're talking with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore on Super Talk 1270.
Talk and sports for Bismarck Mandan. Super Talk 1270. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. We're talking about the future of your pharmacy and that leg of the triad of care that we always talk about. So what does the future pharmacy... And you made a differentiation between small town pharmacies, and I'm trying to figure out where that line is. Okay, how do you define a small town?
Yeah.
Is it Mandan? Is it Wishick? Is it Wilton? Is it Bismarck? Because I see that walking right on up population until they have that model of it's just mail only.
Yeah.
Just mail only.
Well,
so, but it's going to start in the small town. We've already seen that.
Right.
And a lot of it comes back to who's going to own this, who's going to work there, who's coming out of school.
Yeah. You know,
I mean, kids aren't going to pharmacy school like they used to, and we'll talk a little bit about should they?
Yeah, you know, so I grew up in a small town. I grew up in southwest North Dakota. My dad was a barber. The barber shop was right beside the drugstore. That was my dream. Now, I didn't make it back to a small town, but I consider Bismarck Mandan as a small community, especially because of the colleagues in the country that I work with they're in Houston, you know, they're in Denver, so they're in these large communities. Now, they're in suburbs and they have pockets of population, so they have a small town vibe to them. But, you know, my thought process as I was preparing for this last night is what is that community of 2,500 people, what does their pharmacy look like in 20 years? And I believe what it will look like is it will be the medical center for that community, because pharmacists will become advanced practice. They will get prescriptive privileges. They will be able to do some diagnosis. Their education will be extended. So people will come to those.
So that's out of necessity, though.
Out of necessity.
Well, so we already see a little bit of that. Like a hospital will have their own pharmacy there. Yeah. And that'll kind of be the model moving forward. If you're going to have any kind of a healthcare provider in a community, you're going to have a pharmacy embedded in that.
It's a little bit of the model that we tried to create with Dakota Natural Health Center, which used to be people that were employed by us. They're now independent practitioners.
Subs.
They sublease the space from us, but it's their own clinics. So in our community, instead of the public coming to pharmacists to get a strep test done to see if they have strep throat and then the subsequent prescription, we're still referring them down the hall to the practitioners that's their business.
Isn't that kind of like you go way back because I'm thinking like back into the 1800s and
leeches?
The pharmacist, some people say those work.
Yeah.
But the pharmacist they did it all.
Yeah. Yeah. They really did.
If you didn't have a doctor in town, it was the pharmacist.
Yeah. And so they were apothecaries.
Yes.
So people would go to the pharmacist, and there weren't hindering regulations that would prohibit a pharmacist from touching a patient and making a diagnosis and then making a concoction to treat that patient. We're not allowed to do that. Our license doesn't allow us to do that anymore.
But that's the way it
I think
used to be.
Right,
and actually,
that's where we're going.
A lot of that grew out of the fact that, places that don't have health care and you're not going to have a doctor. And think back to the 1800s, but what was prevalent? Snake oil salesmen.
Right.
And a lot of that grew out of, we need to stop that.
Yeah.
And that was the solution, was the apothecary side of, there's a pharmacist in this community, so that's your healthcare provider.
So when I think about what do we do as a profession to survive, that's really where we're going. We're going into a time where we're going to see what we consider medical deserts. So when Rite Aid closes at 400 and 500 stores in the Ohio area, they've created this large desert because that's all there was. There's no pharmacy for 100 miles. And the only...
Got to go mail order then, right?
Right, yeah. They have to go mail order. Or somebody like Brad, who my friend that's in Canton, Ohio, is trying to change his model. He can fill some of that void by doing what I think is necessary for us to survive. And that's being diverse. I oftentimes... Excuse me. I oftentimes feel like a farmer in the 1970s because my farming buddies when I was growing up, they had to diversify what they were doing. They were all hard grain. It was wheat. That's all they really did. But suddenly, because of some of the oversight, suddenly they're doing soybeans and sunflowers. So they had to diversify. We're now facing that. The model of what I grew up learning and doing and making a nice living is gone. It literally gone. So we're really trying to recreate ourselves and diversify what we're doing, which luckily we started to do quite a while ago. Kind of saw the writing on the wall.
So just to go back to that analogy with the farmer that had to diversify their crop. A lot of that, though, they were told.
Right.
Because, tell you what, if you think farmers just grow whatever they feel like, no, the NDSU extension agent is,
right.
You're going to grow this, and you're going to grow this, and you're going to grow so much of this. Okay, that's the government telling the farmer what to produce. But that's a slippery slope when it comes to talking about pharmacies.
But we're being told what we can do for the most part.
Well, right now with the PBMs, you're being told that you're not going to make a profit by dispensing this medication that you have to dispense.
So you have to figure out what can you do to stay profitable, to stay in business, to keep your people employed, which is, the last several years has been my focus, to make sure that the people that we employ stay employed. They have nice jobs. They have families. There are a lot of pharmacists in the country right now that are out of work. Brad in Ohio says he gets 3 or 4 calls a week from pharmacists looking for a job. And now he's cutting back. So he doesn't have room to employ a skilled pharmacist because he's cutting back on what he's doing to change his model. So he's going to a generic only cost plus model that's profitable and a compounding lab. Now he has a compounding lab, but he's not been very aggressive in what he does. So I've been working with him. He's a really good friend of mine. I've been working with him on ideas of how do you expand How do you expand your lab business? How do you market that? What are some things that we do that he's not doing that I'm sharing with him? And a big part of our conversations this week were just that, teaching him about the PerioProtect business that we've talked about in the past, and in the dental world, and some of the compounds that we're doing for the dental community, and turning over
the veterinary road. There's so many different avenues to go down.
Yep. And I think the tipping point for Brad was, first of all, he went to Houston a couple weeks ago to an international compounding meeting. I went pheasant hunting, so I wasn't there.
Man.
Yeah. But the tipping point is the talk and all the colleagues and the people that he know in similar situations. And then he gets home and a dentist walks into his pharmacy on last Friday afternoon, and spent an hour and a half with him trying to partner with him because he's suffering as well. So he's trying to partner with a community pharmacy that he can collaborate with to protect both of their practices.
I want to come back and talk about the workforce side, because I think you touched on something. We're talking with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore, on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk. Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bach, along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. And we'll talk a little bit about workforce, because I think you touched on something that I want to flesh out a little bit, because it wasn't that long ago we were talking about all of these pharmacists quitting the big boxes because
the work conditions were so poor.
The work conditions were abhorrent.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't do this. And overly stressed, overly worked, not compensated. And, okay, so we get a bunch of them quit. And now we have a bunch of them looking for jobs.
Yeah.
And the jobs aren't there because they're not going to go back to the big box if they can't help it. But I don't think those big box jobs are there either.
I don't think so.
So what did we just see happen to the pharmaceutical or the pharmacy world from a career, an employee? Because NDSU, we've got a great pharmacy school.
One of the top in
North
the
Dakota,
country.
One of the tops in the country. What does that tell kids thinking about going into those programs?
Yeah, so I believe what's happened is, and again, vertical integration. So the insurance companies, the healthcare systems, the end product, the prescription drug, they're all under one roof. So the people doing this, even a couple of the big box stores, they don't want to be known as pharmacies anymore. They want to be healthcare systems, total healthcare systems. From whether it's virtual or you even walk in their door to see a practitioner, that's the model they've created, and they've really pared back on the delivery side of the prescription drugs, because they own a huge mail order system, so they can push people into that system because they're insured by that virtually integrated model. So that puts people out of work. That puts pharmacists out of work, puts technicians out of work, and they're looking for work. That's their profession.
So what's the expectation of kid off the farm, goes to NDSU for pharmacology, and then they come out and go, where am I going to work? Because what I'm hearing is it's not the model of, well, I'm going to go be a pharmacist at a pharmacy and potentially someday own the pharmacy. That model's gone.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So is it, well, there's a very few jobs that are going to be in this vertical integration side.
Right.
Because somebody has to oversee. Okay, at that point, you're a paper pusher, because whether it's robotics or a whole bunch of people that are probably mildly trained at a distribution center somewhere, what does the future look like for this kid coming off the farm, going through pharmacology school, going through a program like NDSU, and then come out and going, where'd the job go?
Right. Well,
what do you tell that kid?
Our guest today was going to be Mike Schwab from the North Dakota Pharmacists Association, and we were going to talk about some of these things. But the things that, like the association and one of Mike's colleagues, Jesse Johnson, is working with the NDSU College of Pharmacy to create a model of like collaborative agreements. So opening up, getting legislation passed at the local level that allows pharmacists to collaborate with prescribers, allows them to do things like lab testing. I'm pretty sure that if I see a patient and I do a cholesterol lab and I look at their numbers, I have the knowledge to prescribe a cholesterol medication for them if needed, plus some of the nutrient and lifestyle changes that are necessary, which they don't get.
Stop eating this, start eating this, and hey, we probably won't have to put you on a statin.
Which they don't get if they do a virtual or a limited medical review from a virtually integrated system, because they're going to be pushed into the medication.
Well, a great example, and I always talk about, personally, when you're talking about proper weight and health, it's not BMI, it's percent body fat. And if you're sitting in front of a computer on a virtual visit, they go, well, how tall are you and what do you weigh?
Right.
Great, but you have no idea what my muscle composition is. Right. And whereas somebody can walk into the doctor's office, the doctor's like, oh, you put on 10 pounds.
Yeah. So,
or the pharmacy, you put on 10 pounds, because that's where that relationship comes in.
There's a major danger in losing the hands-on medical examination from a person. I just think it's the demise of healthcare.
I'm feeling a little optimistic, though, about NDSU and other pharmacy schools thinking now and being a little proactive.
Yes. And I think one thing that NDSU College of Pharmacy has been over and above most institutions in the country is proactive. We've done some things in the state that we were the first to do. Telepharmacy. We were the model that telepharmacy in the country was built upon. We had the first telepharmacy system in the country. And the innovativeness and our leadership at that level is kind of grasped the idea that we have to change with the way we're teaching our students, or they're not going to have a job when they come out.
The model's changed, so we need to change the education system with them. And that's hopeful, because we see, especially in higher education a lot, that they're slow to change the model.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way we've always done it.
Right.
And what we're talking about right now is if you're not nimble, it's gone.
It is. Now, there's a danger for the population. So how about the pharmacist that's 30 years old working in a pharmacy wherever it is, and people my age? There's a gap here. We don't have that education to provide that collaborative agreement practice model that is now being taught. So I think our state association is doing a really good job of reaching back to us. Now, I'm a registered pharmacist. I'm not a doctor of pharmacy, and they're probably going to push it up to the point where, everybody in our building has a PharmD except myself. So they're going to push, you have to be a PharmD or a doctor of pharmacy to do these collaborative agreements. So now that population of pharmacists that are 50 to 65 that are registered pharmacists may not be able to participate in that model. But I think there's a place for us in some of the things we do.
Take a look at the institutional knowledge.
Right. And, with our nutraceuticals and our compounding lab, that knowledge, that's experience. You can just teach so much of that.
Right.
But that's so much of that's experience. So we carry a great value. I'm pretty confident in what we've done as a pharmacy in a hybrid store and the path that we're on. We're still open. We're not laying off people. Finances get tight sometimes, but we're surviving, and we survive because we have made ourselves integrative.
I'm going to put you on the spot here because we're up against a break, but what would you tell a pharmacology student or potential student that's like, well, I want to go be a pharmacist?
Yeah, I think they need to be aware of what their options are coming out. So do you go into research? Do you go into, a lot of pharmacists go into residency programs, and these residency programs take them down that advanced practice. So if you want to work in a rural community pharmacy, you have to make sure that you have the tools to provide care to the patient population over and above putting a label on a prescription bottle, because that's died. That's totally died.
Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore on Super Talk 1270.
Talk of the Town, weekday mornings starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app. Don't miss a minute. Hannity Show.
I know that there is a segment of society that would love a perpetual shutdown, and I guess we could live in a bubble, but who's going to build the bubble if everybody shuts down?
Weekday afternoon starting at 2 on Super Talk 1270.
Portions of the following program are pre-recorded.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. And I wanted to hold you over for one more segment just because you mentioned something that I really hadn't thought a whole lot about. But what are the avenues? Because I would think of a kid coming off the farm or wherever else and going to NDSU, for example, going to pharmacology school, going to go be a pharmacist, go get their doctor of pharmacy is what the model's going to look like in the future. But what are the avenues? Because the job has changed. So upon graduation, where does that kid go? Because it's not going to be back to their small town or, Bismarck or, being a traditional pharmacist or what we think is pharmacists. Right. What are the other job options out there? Because, we talked a little bit about that vertical integration. It's like, okay, well, that's one pharmacist to sign off on hundreds of thousands of prescriptions from a mail order robotic center.
A warehouse in Florida.
Yeah.
So we have pharmacists.
Not a lot of jobs there.
No, we have pharmacist to technician ratios in North Dakota. So for every pharmacist, you can have 4 technicians. One of the gals on our call last night is in California. Theirs is 1-to-1. So if they have 2 pharmacists, they can have 3 technicians. That makes it really, really difficult. Wow. In Florida, they have nothing. So they can set up these warehouses with 1,000 technicians and a couple pharmacists overseeing that. So there's not many jobs for pharmacists in that world. So I think that people entering into the pharmacy profession, and I would still encourage people to do it if that's where their interest lies, because I don't know exactly what that's going to look like in the 6 to 8 years that they spend during that educational time.
But they need to know that going in.
They need to know that going in, and what path does that take them down?
And what are those paths?
Well, I think the pharmacy university, College of Pharmacy Industry needs to be the leaders in this. They need to create the paths for these students so that they know that coming out of this tunnel, there is a profession out there for them. And it's a rapid. But
we don't know what that looks like right now.
We don't. It's a rapidly changing world. And I think artificial intelligence is just one of the things that we have to really be aware of. I woke up one night a couple months ago thinking, and it just came to me, and I'm just like, when I get to work, I need to see if I can trademark the term meducate, because artificial intelligence is going to be the educational piece for our population on prescription drugs. As this data is gathered over the next decade, people will be able to go to an AI site that's dedicated to pharmacy, punch in their question and get an answer, and it's probably going to be the right answer. I do some of that myself. I punch these questions in, and I get the answer, and I'm like,
sounds like going to WebMD.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is.
But we were, over the last decade, we've been a little guarded, at least those in the know, about, okay, people self-diagnosing fully.
Yeah.
Well, I read on the...
Dr. Google.
Yeah, but have you been to a South Pacific island? No, then you don't have that.
Right, right.
So, but that's the danger in it. But AI changes that.
Right. So when I got to the store that morning, I looked at Meducate because I thought it'd be a great great dropping spot.
Did you get it?
Our website, so that people could go to Meducate and ask their questions, and then it leads them to us to finalize their answer. It's already taken. And then I started to look at artificial intelligence softwares for pharmacy. There's thousands of them. So it's already being done. And I think it's the idea that because it's being done, it's going to be done in all realms of medicine. If we don't embrace it, it completely replaces us. So our pharmacy students need to be well aware. But there's a lot of paths. Nuclear pharmacy is a really, really cool industry. I think the nutraceutical world that we've created, there'll be models for students coming out that they will be able to enter into, because the nutraceutical industry does a great job of educating pharmacists outside of what they learned in pharmacy school to do the types of things that we do. I just had a friend of mine went to Minneapolis a month ago to a large nutraceutical conference that there were pharmacists, there were medical doctors, there were nurse practitioners, there were chiropractors. So they were all like-minded. And he said it's the best conference he's ever been to in his 20 years of being in the nutraceutical world. So this is an ever-expanding realm. I'm pretty pleased with where we're at, but we have to continue to forge down that path to make sure that we're a viable business, because it is a business, and a business needs to make money to employ the people that they employ, and we're going to see a drastic drop in the workforce. We're seeing a population of young people that they're educated by their phones. They're going to see their physician by their phones. They're going to age, and then that's just going to push more people like me away, because everything is in the palm of their hand. But I believe we still have a place, because there's always going to be that one question that needs to be answered. And there's always going to be the need for that person to come to us, whether it's through a website or something that we've created to help them make decisions about their health in collaboration with their medical provider.
So I'm seeing a model where a platform like Serenity University is it's kind of like, okay, I need to change a light switch, so Google it, and I can swap out okay, I need some healthcare advice, so Google it, and you get this DIY that pops up and walks you through the process. I see that being a facet, especially aided with AI.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that that's part of the model that we need to consider to stay a viable profession.
So,
or we'll go away.
So somebody going into pharmacology school, there's options out there, but know that what you're going into now will not be there when you come out.
Know that
it's going to be drastically different.
Yeah, knowing that growing up next to a drugstore in a small town, North Dakota, that's not your job. Your job is going to be much, much different. But there's opportunities. We have some new leadership at NDSU College of Pharmacy, and I think they're really, and I see it as a board member, because I'm starting to sit in on exams of the students that are coming out of college, and I'm seeing their mindset change, because we ask them questions and pointed questions. So,
last question.
Yeah.
How does North Dakota fit in? Because North Dakota's an outlier. We're the one-off when it comes to pharmacy ownership. What does that look like in the future?
I think there'll still be challenges to it, but if we're going to maintain the health care of our rural population, unless our small towns just completely close up, there's still a need for these small town pharmacies, and the thing that keeps them there is our ownership law.
And a lot of opportunity for North Dakota to really lead the way in what the future of pharmacies look like. Other
states are starting to look back at our model, and even there was a couple states that looked at legislation to put an ownership law in place, but everybody else grandfathered through, so it really didn't serve its purpose.
Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. Check out Serenity University. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Our current guest is musician Matthew Nelson, one half of the famous Nelson twin sons of rock and roll legend Ricky Nelson and grandson of entertainment icons Ozzie and Harriet Nelson. Matthew and his brother Gunnar perform as the band Nelson. When Matthew and Gunnar first hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart with Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection, which they wrote and performed, it landed them into the Guinness Book of World Record as the only family in entertainment history with 3 generations of #1 hitmakers. Thank you for joining us, Matthew.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on the phone with you.
The album After the Rain. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, the release of that album and the success was at the time when grunge and Seattle music started to emerge on the scene. Did that genre impact your music or your album or your style at all?
Well, I think that genre actually, it was the largest paradigm shift in music history. It affected everybody. Absolutely. Gunnar and I had, we were kind of the bookends on the whole, what we call confidence rock era. You know, we had hard rock, but pop hits that were on pop radio. And ironically enough, Nirvana, which spearheaded that entire grunge movement, was signed to the offshoot label of Geffen we were signed to. So not only did it close the door on us in a lot of ways, just with musical taste in general, but at our own record label. So we had to get smart real quick, and it was a pretty rough road. We spent a lot of time overseas and reinventing ourselves, and just out of kind of the desperation of the moment, we started one of the first independent rock music labels called Stone Canyon Records, which is what we've been releasing records on ever since. And it's kept us working and, more importantly, servicing our fans through the years and the changes. And here we are 20 years later, and it's not so unhip to be us anymore. It's kind of come around full circle, and kids are getting into guitar music with Rock Band and things like that. And, you know, people that were fans of ours from 20 years ago have kids that they're bringing to the show. So we're having a really great time. And, you know, we haven't stopped making records. It's not like we stopped recording in 20 years ago. But
now, I don't know how intimate you were growing up with your father's music career. You and your brother have gone through 20 years minimum of a career. Could you explain to me, as somebody from an independent label, what your opinion is on what's happened from when you started understanding the business of music up till the current moment? Because we've gone through social networking, we've gone through internet, we've gone through venue changes of profit sharing, etc. Maybe if you could comment a few words on that.
Well, everything has changed. The one thing that stays constant is, I think, something that's real truth is in our business, it really comes down to a hit song. It's a song-oriented business above anything. There's so many differences from when we started and you know, now I can't even. It would take us hours. I mean, something as simple as when we used to send out a letter to our fan club, it cost us $35,000 in postage for every mailing. And now it's as easy as hitting a keystroke on a computer, and it's instant. So that kind of that's a real asset to people like us, especially that are doing it independently, and for music fans in general. What it does, though, unfortunately, is there's a trade-off. You know, kids nowadays tend to not pay for the music they're listening to. So music has really become a commercial for the band, and you go out and you see them play live.
I agree with that, by the way. I really do.
Yeah, and the one thing that's good for us, I mean, the one bad thing, well, we have to go there. The good thing for us is we love traveling, and more importantly, we're really capable of playing live. We love to play live. That's how we had to prove ourselves before. We never really we were almost kind of, because we were sons of, we always felt that we were almost guilty until proven innocent. We couldn't learn on the job, if you will. You know, we started playing clubs at a very young age. And so for us, you know, we haven't really changed our path, but the business has definitely changed around us.
As you were growing up, you were the son of famous Ricky Nelson and grandson of Ozzie and Harriet. I'd like to ask you a personal question, if I could, about where you were or how you found out about your father's passing. I mean, to me, it seems like there was a lot less mediums, and your father, being as famous as he was, I have these visions of you finding out from a news anchor as opposed to the traditional ways. And back in the 80s, I think that would probably be a little bit unusual. Could you maybe talk to me a little bit about that?
Well, let's just say this. I found out about it on the car radio. And okay. I was actually supposed to be on the plane with my brother. And,
oh, wow.
You know, we were living with my dad. I was 18 years old. So we knew each other very well. And I was, yet another question. I was extremely aware of his career. And I knew all about the songs, who wrote what. I'm pretty much a walking dictionary of what he did. But more importantly, he was just a great guy. And it was New Year's Eve, and for whatever reason, he told us if we wanted to go with him or whatever, that we'd probably have to meet him in Dallas. He had a couple of smaller shows to play, and he was going to meet us there on his private plane. And we just decided that we would wait for him to get back, because the whole point was to spend time with him. And I just kind of get a feeling now that he knew something was going to go on, but I was in the car and they were playing a couple of his songs, and I never put it together. I just thought, wow, I can't believe the local rock station is playing some of my dad's stuff. It wasn't the oldies station. And the disc jockey came on after the last tones of Garden Party, and he was choked up, and he said, this has been a tribute to Rick Nelson, who was killed today along with his entire band in a plane crash in Dallas. And I was with a girl at the time, and she grabbed me and said, it can't be true. And all I remember was running out of the car and passing out. And the thing is, I call it now like it's a football game. I can't really think about anything more horrible than experiencing something like that. My brother found out, yes, from a news anchor. And it's been a love-hate relationship with the media ever since. I mean, we understand it's a necessary evil that we have to deal with, but for whatever reason, they didn't give us the not only the benefit of letting us know through discreet channels, but after he passed away, they were completely unfair to him. And there were so many things that came up about what caused the plane crash. And unfortunately, since there was a settlement with the aircraft company that improperly maintained the plane and caused the crash, we couldn't say anything as a family. It was part of the settlement. And so he took a lot of lumps that he didn't need to take. The NTSB report came out, of course, saying what happened, which is a gasoline heater caught on fire mid-flight. And the media didn't really want to cover that because it wasn't as salacious as, what they were reporting. So, here we are 25 years after his passing, and it still feels fresh to me. It's like I say in the show, I still feel like he's out on the road, and I'm waiting for him to come home.
To kind of expand on what you said a little bit about how the media handled it afterwards with the love-hate relationship. As a child, I remember, and I don't remember which news anchor it was, but they kind of put their fist down and said that I won't have it. I know this man. He's a good man. And I won't continue on with this. Did you ever hear about that, or did you know that?
I actually was watching it. I watched it, and I believe it was Dan Rather. It was amazing. I was there. I was watching it happen. This is after 2.5 weeks of him just getting creamed in the media. And Dan Rather, I believe it was, put his fist down and said, I won't be a part of this. This is irresponsible journalism. It's not fair to him or his family, and I'm just not going to besmirch his name because it's not right. And I have never to this day ever seen anybody take a stand for a celebrity like that.
I have not either.
And I was so impressed with it, and it kind of said it, because it's kind of like now, here I am years later, and I still meet people that come up saying that my dad was about the nicest guy they've ever met. And hopefully that's the legacy I'll leave behind. I think it's much more important even than his music. He was just a great guy.
Matthew Nelson, thank you very much for your time. This has been a real treat. Matthew Nelson, an entertainment iconic, family member, Guinness Book record holder for the only family in entertainment history of 3 generations of hit makers. Matthew, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to Super Talk 1270, Talk of the Town. My name is Jason Spieth, sitting in for Steve Bach, and we're going to go right to our next interview. Forged and Fire champion, Cody Adolphson.
Here we are, folks, live and local at the Little Wolf Iron Works, Forging Center.
Forge Shop.
Mic up to the mouth when we talk.
Forge Shop. Anything you want to call it.
Cody Adolphson is our special guest here. He is the champion, the 2022 champion for History Channel's Forged in Fire. Now, the way I've been describing it to people, and you're going to describe it next, so get ready for your description of what Forged in Fire is. I say it's kind of like Survivor meets American Idol, but with swords and knives and daggers and really cool stuff.
Kinda. I like the fact that you need a skill on the show in order to compete.
Well, like Chopped, where you got to actually have a little bit of a skill and a craft and a trade.
Yeah, exactly. It's a timed competition between 4 bladesmiths to build what they want you to build and see if you have what it takes. And my episode was season 9, episode 6, so I'm just that episode's champion.
Oh, that episode's champion. Okay,
right, there's multiple champions.
Oh, it is like Chopped then.
Yep.
Okay, every episode is a different champion. Yep. Okay, and you got some prize money?
Yeah, I got $10,000.
Nice. Okay, so and the idea is either to go take a vacation or invest it in your business, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Something like that.
So let's talk about just the whole craft and the trade and the skill of foraging, welding, working with fire. Let's talk with foraging. Is this blacksmith? Is this what this is?
Yeah, it's blacksmithing, bladesmithing. Okay. It's the same thing they used to do when they used to forge weapons for throughout time.
Okay, so bladesmithing, blacksmithing, is there any other type of words that we might know about? Fire starter, firesmithing?
No, it's mostly just bladesmithing,
right.
blacksmithing.
So walk me through the process here about how a knife is made, because what I'm looking at here right now, folks, and we'll have the pictures available at thecrudelife.com as well as supertalk1270am.com or links to that. It starts out actually in an artist's sketchbook with a pencil, and it looks like somebody would be drawing a painting or a portrait of a person, a sketch artist. But this is of a knife. Walk me through how this starts.
So I see knives, social media, anywhere in life at Shields or anywhere, get an idea for my own shape, and I draw it up. But I'm really into Damascus, so the way a blade really starts with me is I actually forge out layered steel, which is Damascus steel.
No, I'm not familiar with the word Damascus. Go on with that.
So Damascus is two types of different layered steel, where when you forge it out, depending on how you manipulate the metal and how many layers you have of the steel, the pattern changes in the steel.
What would be the other word besides Damascus that's used? Steel?
Layered steel,
Okay,
pattern steel,
pattern steel.
but it's mostly Damascus steel. And so then after you make your knife and you clean it up and you dip it into a acid etch, then your actual pattern shows after that forging process.
I see. Now I'm understanding what you're talking about. So that's where the artistic part really takes a new level.
Right. You can do pretty much anything with steel. I mean, there's people that put pictures in steel. I mean, it's crazy.
How does that happen?
So there's a whole nother process of putting in...
laser?
Nope. So what they do is they take nickel and then they shape it into what picture they want, and they put it into a canister, Damascus canister, and people that have seen the show will understand what I'm saying. And they actually put that into the steel, and then they'll tile it and forge weld it back together again, and it'll actually repeat down the blade.
So I can take my family picture.
Well, to an extent.
Okay.
It's a two-dimensional silhouetted shape.
I see.
Type of deal. You can do basic pictures of it. It's crazy. People have put their names in steel. It's endless. The possibilities are absolutely endless with steel.
Does that take a lot of time then compared to just a traditional knife?
Yeah, I mean, you can forge out a traditional knife, get it forged to shape in a couple hours, and heat treat it and temper it. I mean, you can get it done in a few hours, obviously.
It takes longer than that with the
Damascus. There are some steels that I've made that I've had 12 hours of forging alone into the steel before I even make the knife.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a time-consuming... Patience is a big part of this.
I don't see an anvil around here. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay. Woo!
I have...
I was going to say...
Four.
3 anvils? Okay.
4. That one's holding up a box.
I thought that was the box holder. Okay, no, that's another anvil.
That's a 100-year-old anvil.
Do you get a bang on the iron, or do you have one of those machines that does most of that? Or?
I just bought a Big Blue with my prize money.
Big Blue.
It's a power hammer. It's a 110-pound power hammer.
Okay.
Air actuated.
And how does that work then, the Blue Max 110?
So it's powered by air, and it brings up your hammer, and then it hits a sensor and it drops it.
Now it would be the Magnaforce air compressor over there?
Yeah, ran by the air compressor, and then I have a press which is electric, and that's hydraulic controlled.
Okay.
So, and then I swing the hammer just as much as using these machines sometimes.
So what is the other one's called the Coal Iron Works. Is that the name of the machine?
Yep, that's my forging press. It's a 16-ton forging press.
And that just looks like, what, it forges the layers together? Is that what it does?
Squishes it.
Squishes it.
Yep,
okay.
16 tons has squishing power on it, and then the other one just hammers it out. Speeds up my drawing out process.
I bet I could fit my arm in there.
Oh, yeah. With that set of dies, that's my set of flat dies for after I heat treat or straightening out a billet. So depending on what dies I have in my machine is what it does to the steel.
Okay. Boy, this is some interesting things. Now, we're taking a look at the fire portion here. Now, how hot does this fire get? Does this flame get in the oven?
Like it's up to 3,000 degrees.
3,000 degrees?
Yep. You
ever cook in there? Have you ever put a hot dog in there just to see what happens?
I've turned off the forge for about 20 minutes and flash cooked a hot dog.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
Okay, s'mores? No,
no
okay.
s'mores.
Just melt that thing right
off. It's crazy how hot it gets in there. The steel gets so hot you can barely look at it.
Okay. How did you get into the show, by the way?
So, growing up in North Dakota, I've been around hunting. Always carried a knife. I always wanted to get into making knives, and then I'm a welder by trade, so been around metal my whole life. And so I saw the show come on, and I started getting into it more and more and more, and I finally made the decision in January of 2020 to pursue it and actually learn how to make knives. So I got a hold of now one of my best friends, who I followed him on Instagram, and he's actually a 2-time Forged and Fire champion. And went and took a class with him out in Wisconsin, and then I just fell in love. I made my first Damascus knife, and I was hooked.
2-time forging champion?
Yeah, he's 2-time Forged and Fire champion.
Okay, and then you guys became buddies, and now does he treat you different now that you're a champ?
No, we treat each other pretty much the same.
Cody Adolphson, hold that thought. We're going to take a brief pause. We come back more on Super Talk 1270's Talk of the Town.
1270. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back here live in the studio at the Little Wolf Ironworks Industrial Shop here in Bismarck, North Dakota. Jason Spiess here with Super Talk 1270. Cody Adolphson is the champion of Season 9, Episode 6. The champion of the Forged in Fire on the History Channel. He made a sword for the championship round, a couple knives leading up to it. And when we teased at the break, we wanted to find out how he can apply this into the real world. He won some good prize money. He invested in the Blue Max 110, which I imagine some people know what that is. I don't.
It's Big Blue. It's the power hammer on the show, actually.
The Big Blue. There you go. It's the Big Blue. Not to be confused with Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. You ever go to Big Boy?
All the time.
Get the Hawaiian flying style? All right. That's what I call it. Okay, so you've got the Little Wolf Ironworks. What is it that you do with Little Wolf Ironworks? How can you apply this out into the real world?
So I make custom knives. People order a knife. They kind of pick what kind of steel, whether Damascus, mono steel. They can pick handle material. And I make them a knife, and I make them a handed-down heirloom that they can hand down for generation to generation.
And this is a forever knife. I was explaining it to my son. I said, it's one of those knives that, you give your grandchildren, and if they lose it 10,000 years from now, somebody finds it, and it still works.
I'd hope so. That's my goal.
But it is like one of those forever knives.
It is, yeah. That's my goal, where somebody buys a knife from me, they can hand it down generation to generation and, make it a special thing.
I can see a lot of, family names, family crests, and just, some things that can be really put into there. I was noticing in your, was that a Snap-on Tools? What is that?
It's just some type of a toolbox.
Was antlers, so you could even do antlers.
Yeah, antler. I've made handles with meteorite, mammoth tusk.
Meteorite? Where'd you get that?
I know a guy.
Oh, okay. Well, I might
no, it's actually from the largest meteorite formation in the world. It's the Campo del Cilio meteorite in Argentina.
Okay. And I suppose you can just buy that offline or something.
Oh, yeah. You just got to know who to talk to.
Just got to go to the right dark website. Holy smokes, I'm holding it here. I've wondered about that because a lot of iron, right?
Iron and nickel.
Iron and nickel in meteorites. Yeah, they say a lot of meteorites are high in iron and nickel. I couldn't remember nickel, but I remember the iron part of it. In fact, a lot of the ancients, it was sacred if you made a knife out of meteorite.
Yeah, you can forge it into a knife.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So, okay. How about anything else? Are you going to do anything else with the Blue Max, or is it just for knives? Can you do...
you can do ornamental blacksmithing with it. You can do quite a bit with them.
Do you see yourself being one of those artists that sell, the twisted wrought iron and all that different stuff?
I had a lady ask me one time how much I'd charge per foot of ornamental blacksmith hand railing, and I threw her some outrageous number, and she said, "Oh, that's not bad." And I just kind of stood back and was kind of like,
"Let me rework those numbers."
So I could ask for more.
But that shows you there's a market out there.
Oh, it's. Okay. I mean, it's a trade. It's just like any other trade, and somebody has to do it.
And how much of this is like welding? Because you are a welder by trade, right?
Yep, by trade I'm a welder. I have my own welding truck.
And did you go to trade school for that, or just kind of learn on the fly? And
no, my college is what you're standing in. This is where I learned how to weld too. My dad was a welder too, so I'm second generation welder.
All right, so then talk to me about that. You're over at the Marathon Refinery.
Yeah, I work for a contractor over at the refinery.
Okay.
So I started this when I was 18, jumped in a welding truck and went to work. So.
When did you start out in the oil field? Because you were out there for a while, weren't you?
I started here at the refinery with Westcon.
Okay.
Local company.
Oh, sure.
Started, yep. So I started with them. Dad worked for them for years. And then I kind of traveled around with them for a while, built the refinery in Dickinson and worked up in Watford and here and there, you know. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of came back to the refinery every so often when there was a job here, and since I was local, they didn't have to pay me for travel pay.
Yeah, I suppose not.
Yeah, so
saves on the hotel, $300 a night.
Right, I just shacked up at Mom and Dad's here and went to work and cashed all the money.
Right, yeah. We can negotiate a good per diem that way.
Yeah, so I've done that for the last 11 years, and then knife making kind of got my eye, and one day I'd like to go full time. That's the goal.
Are you seeing more of the welding opportunities open? Because there's been a big push for people to get into welding in the last 10 years. And
yeah.
So that's why I was wondering, you're wanting to go more towards the artistic, passionate, custom high-end route, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering on the welding side, is that really picking up or what?
Yeah, I mean, we're losing skilled trades like crazy.
There's something like an 85% retirement rate. I think that's over, actually. I think they're gone, actually.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, honestly, you work out there every day. You just see the work ethic. You see, back when I first started, it's completely different from what it is now. You're not getting the same quality of hands on your jobs, and people are just there for a paycheck. They don't do this there's no pride in it anymore.
The other part I wondered about is, when I'm in my mid-40s, and when I went into the workplace, they said that I will probably have 3 to 7 jobs throughout my career. But they said throughout my career, meaning I'd probably work in the media as a writer or talk show or something within that vein, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nowadays, they tell people that you're going to have like 15 jobs. Every 2 years, expect a new job type of a thing. Are people leaving welding then when they go there? I mean, what's going on with that?
I have no idea. I mean, you're out in the oil field. Yeah, you're going to have 15 different jobs you end up on in a year, 2 years. You know how it is.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, a lot of people try to stay in there if they can, but of course, if it's down, they got to go do something else.
Yep. This job ends, you go to the next one. This pipeline ends, you go to the next one.
Yep.
It's just
yours has to seem a little bit like a lateral move, though. I mean, welding and forging metal seems pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, I picked up welding really quick and easy when I was younger. I've been around it since I think I welded the first time when I was 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, my dad's been doing it since
that was the other thing I was bringing up about the different trades and stuff, is that, a lot of welders and pipe fitters and electricians, that's their job for life. And that's where I'm wondering if I don't think a lot of the younger people are looking at it like that,
No, honestly, like I said, it's scary. We're losing our skilled trades like crazy.
Right.
There's not going to be enough people to do what needs to be done.
They'll do it for 5 years, make good money, and then
do something else.
Go, I don't know, work at Walmart.
I mean, if I do go full time, I'll still do welding on the side. I mean, I'll always have a welding business. It's something to do around here, and people are begging for it around here.
Second generation, you know a few people.
Yeah, one or two.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about these knives then. If someone were to buy them, let's get some knives sold for you here, see if we can't do that somehow. So how does somebody buy a knife? I mean, do they just call you up? Do they send you a sketch? Do they text you? What?
So I post all my knives that I build on social media, my Instagram or my Facebook. And usually the way it works is someone sees a knife that I finish and they say, oh, I love this, I would like something like this. Then I would say, well, this particular knife is going to cost X amount of dollars. And then sometimes that's too much for them. Sometimes they go with it. And then I offer to go to a mono steel compared to Damascus or whatever the knife I posted was. So get a hold of me on social media. My number is on my Facebook. You can text me. You can call me. We can get something set up. And I actually work through you and you design your knife with me to make it yours.
Talk of the Town, weekday mornings starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app.